Well, as I always say, Mondays are usually the most boring days starting the week. However, I'm going to keep your Mondays fun and exciting because, as you know already, New Japan Pro Wrestling has wrapped up the G1 Climax. I mean, it was a fun ride, but I think the real question we ask ourselves, who walked out as our winner for this year? Well, that's going to be a very interesting. Now, as you probably know, we're going to be reviewing the last 2 days of the tournament with day 18 featuring the co-main event, which is of course the semifinals. So, as you know, one match features Yoda Tsuji versus Evil, and the other features, of course, Zack Sabre Jr. versus Konosuke Takeshita. So, who will make it to the finals? Well, we're going to be doing all of it from A to Z review both days to get to the winner of this year's G1 Climax. Now, as always, we'll cap up our episode as usual with some news updates to give you guys updates on what's been happening in the world of pro wrestling, such as what events the promotions are thrown out, who's booked, what matches are set, including developments that are happening in the world of pro wrestling as we speak. So, let's get ready for another episode of Deleted Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Hey everyone, welcome to Deleted Wrestle Zone, all things that is pro wrestling with AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, TNA, the National Wrestling Alliance, various promotions, wrestlers, matches, and championships. I am your host, J-Rod here. So, if you are new to the channel, welcome. This is a channel where we do a lot of pro wrestling reviews from various promotions, not only here in the United States, but also in Japan, Mexico, Canada, Europe, the UK. Anywhere in the world pro wrestling is not as big, but it continues to grow. We also, of course, do discussion videos, talk about various topics such as the wrestlers themselves, the promotions, factions, storylines, whatever we want to talk about. We also, of course, do more news updates. If certain information was unable to be on this episode, we can either put it on the next one or on a separate video by itself. We also, of course, do real-time news updates to keep you guys on alert if something has happened in the world of wrestling that needs to be addressed ASAP. We also, of course, got the Unagi Sayaka Watch and various other cool wrestling content as well. So if you like what you see, please subscribe to us or click on that subscribe button. You'll be getting a lot of daily reviews and other cool wrestling content as well. But if you like this episode, please give us a like on the like button or a nice comment in the description down below. Now, enough with the jibber jabbers. Let's get to it. So, as I mentioned, we're wrapping up New Japan's G1 Climax. So let's begin with the 18th, featuring, of course, the semifinals of the G1. Okay, the G1 Climax, New Japan Pro Wrestling. This is, of course, day 18, featuring the co-main event, the semifinals of the G1 Climax. And of course, it opened up with a bit of a showcase with a little bit of the young lions taking stage, teaming up with some of the veterans. Now, first team we have, of course, the young lions, Masatora Yasuda, Zane J, and of course, Shoma Kota. They take on, of course, Takuya Matsumoto, Tiger Mask, and Togi Makabe. Now, of course, as you all know, those who follow New Japan, you know the deal about the Young Lions. Now, for those who are new to this channel and don't follow Young Lions, the Young Lions are, in fact, the least experienced. They're limited to use certain moves. Like, for example, for submission moves, they're only allowed to use, of course, the Boston Crab, which is, of course, a very interesting move. But they only use it so they can learn how to master it. And that's something that often the veteran wrestlers will use against them as a learning tool. And that's exactly what happened when what's his name, Zane Jay actually ended up himself on the wrong side of the Boston Crab by Makabe, and just like that, he tapped out. Now, our next match, we had an interesting Huntai showdown, a 5-on-5. We have team number 1, Toroyanu, Master Wato, and Yo, our current never openweight 6-man tag team champions. They team up with Satoshi Kojima and Taiji, once again, which unusual for those who do know, they were once members of the Kojima Gun before they renamed themselves Suzuki Gun. They face against Yoshihashi, Ryusuke Taguchi, Yuya Uemura, Shota Umino, and El Desperado. Now, there is no frictions amongst each other, but of course, we do know that Taichi doesn't trust Kojima that often, which it's been well known. But however, what was interested is, of course, Taguchi was able to pick up the victory when he pulled up a roll-up on Master Wato. So what does this mean? Well, Taguchi himself, of course, could issue a challenge for the never openweight 6-man tag team champions. But during his post-match comments, it seems that he wants to team up with El Desperado. But the real question is, who will be their third man? Well, that's going to be a very tough one to follow, but we'll see when we get there. Now, we got, of course, members of the House of Losers, of course, Yujiro Takahashi and Don Fale taking on Tomoaki Hamna and Boltin Oleg. Now, as you know, Boltin Oleg has now been targeted by the House of Torture. As you probably can guess, Fale attacked Boltin Oleg, declaring himself the next challenger for the never openweight championship. Now, of course, when it comes to these morons, they will find ways to ensure the win by cheating, which they normally would do. But it was Fale who picked up the win onto Hamna when he applied an elbow drop, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, Fale picked up the win. But once again, of course, we do see Boltin Oleg trying to deal with Fale, which is going to be interesting. So we could see them showing up. Now, our next match, we have the United Empire. Jacob Austin Young, Cal Newman, and the Great Okan taking on Katsuya Murashima, El Phantasmo, and Hiroshi Tanahashi. Now, nothing too special about this match in any way possible. But of course, factors is El Phantasmo being the current New Japan World Television Champion. People would have pinned him for that. But however, that wasn't the case, because the weakest link in this match was, of course, Katsuya Murashima, being a young lion himself, was the most obvious target in order for Cal Newman to apply the Princess Curse. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, the United Empire walked away with the victory. Now, our next match, we have a very interesting team up. We have Daiki Nagai teaming up with Shingo Takagi, taking on the Bullet Club War Dogs, most specifically Geto, and of course David Finlay. Now, of course, we know there has been some frictions between Finlay and Shingo in the past, but how would that change? Well, I think many of us thought that Daiki Nagai would have been the factor of this match, where of course he loses, but no, it was Shingo Takagi with the submission onto Geto and forced him to tap out, and just like that, it was over. So Daiki Nagai and Shingo Takagi, they picked up the victory. Now, we got the other members of the House of Losers, most specifically Yoshinobu Kanemaru and Sanada, taking on the Bullet Club War Dogs, Taiji Shimori, and of course Joe Maloney. Of course, Maloney hasn't forgotten the treachery what Sanada did to the War Dogs not too long ago. But of course, when it comes to Sanada, you know that he will do whatever it takes to win. He used a guitar on him, and just like that, he pinned him. 1, 2, 3, walked away with a despicable win, in my opinion. So basically, this is concerning because the House of Losers have been winning most of their matches. So this is very disturbing. And now we got the other losers, of course, Doki Sho and Ren Narita taking on TMDK, Kosa Fujita, Rohei Oiwa, and Harley Jackson. Now, of course, we have seen recently what's been happening. The House of Torture are trying to, of course, show that they're far more superior than anybody, and believing that everybody else are a bunch of losers. And that's what exactly. But to be honest with you, the House of Torture are, in fact, the real losers, because they hide behind their cheating. They hide behind their intention. We know they're good wrestlers, but they just hide behind cheating, and that's exactly what happened. But in the end, it was Ren Narita with a leg lock onto Harley Jackson. And just like that, Jackson had no choice but to, of course, tap out. Now, let's jump into the semifinals of the G1 Climax, which is our co-main event. Our first match is Yota Tsuji versus Evil. Now, it's no secret these two have known each other very well. They actually faced off before. about the real question how this was going to play out. Now, of course, when it comes to Evil, one of the biggest scumbags in the earth, he would use definitely tactics in order to win. Like, of course, using the referee to get caught in the crossfire, even having his morons, the House of Losers, to get involved. And not to mention, that's exactly what happened. But however, the big killing blow happened when Fale showed up and applied the Fale drop onto of course, onto Yoda Tsuji, and of course he was out. And and of course that piece of garbage, Evil decided to use, of course, the sharpshooter, or should I say, the death shooter onto him. And of course, Yoda Tsuji was already out of it thanks to this. And of course, Evil walked away with a smile, think he's gonna win. And right now, New Japan are not happy with this whole thing. Now, our main event is, of course, Konosuke Takeshita versus Zack Sabre Jr. Oh, effing God, this match was incredible. I mean, you would have assumed Zack Sabre Jr. would somehow pick up the win due to the fact that he wants to fulfill his destiny to be a two-time back-to-back winner of the G1. Remember, he won last year, and that's the whole thing. But Konosuke Takeshita made it his mission all the way through. I think he might have lost maybe 2 matches in the entire tournament, but he was able to stay alive as much as possible. But unfortunately, Zack Sabre Jr.'s dream to become two-time back-to-back, of course, G1 did not fulfill, because it was Takeshita with the Raging Fire, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, Takeshita will meet Evil at the finals. But of course, Evil showed up to get in his face, trying to tell him, "You're not winning, loser. I'm winning, because I'm the one who's going to rule this whole thing." And of course, Takeshita, he's not going to let someone like Evil to rain on his parade. But we'll see what happens in the finals. So let's jump into that right now. As you know, Day 19, finals of the G1 Climax. The battle line was drawn, ended up with both Evil and Konosuke Takeshita. Now, the real question I think many of you would ask, who will walk away as the winner? Well, we'll get to that, because that's our main event that we're going to be reviewing. Now, let's start, of course, with the beginning of the event, starting with some Young Lion action. We have Zayn J and Masatora Yosuda taking on Tatsuya Matsumoto and Shoma Kota. Now, of course, we all know certain moments when it comes to Young Lions, we've seen time limit draws, or on some occasions, one team will take on the other. But I did mention many times in the past, like either today or, of course, like months, years ago, the Young Lions are limited to their skills because they're training new techniques. So, of course, as always, we've been seeing them using the Boston Crab, either on them or, of course, by the veterans onto them instead. But in this case, it was Yasuda who applied a Boston Crabs on Matsumoto, and just like that, Zayn J and Matsutora Yasuda picked up the victory. Now, our next match, we have Katsuya Murashima taking on Togi Makabe. Teaming up with Togi Makabe, they take on a somewhat reunion of Kojima-gun, consisting of Satoshi Kojima and Taichi. But what's interesting, Taka Michinoku was in tow. People were looking at this. This is like an interesting reunion to see Kojima-gun. Now, I may do a discussion video regarding about them, but we'll see what happens. Now, of course, it was a very good match, I'm not going to lie, but somehow I feel like Kojima and Taichi were able to coexist despite their history from their past. But it was Taichi who picked up the win when he applies the dangerous backdrop on Murashima, and just like that, 1, 2, 3 is over. But however, during the post-match, the celebration was cut short with the arrival of David Finlay. We don't know what was going on, and then until the screen in the back says Knockout Brothers, nobody knew what that meant until they saw very closely who these guys were. It turned out to be Oscar Lobe and Yuko Nakashima. No one had seen them since they went on their excursion recently, and now they're back, and now they're in line with the War Dogs, and they made that perfectly clear. It seems now they're aiming for the IWGP tag team belts, and that's the case. Now, during the post-match comments, they criticize, of course, the fact is this, and I have to say I agree on Oscar Lobe on this fact. Ever since Taichi and Tomohiro Ishii won these belts, they haven't defended them. Not even once. I mean, it's been, what, a month or two or so? But you ask yourself this question, why did they align themselves with David Finlay and the War Dogs? It's very simple. In a later on post-match comments, David Finlay saw something that he felt that he overlooked. Something that would have helped him to benefit the best of course, of the War Dogs, but the future for those who want to succeed. Now, if you look back, Zack Sabre Jr., as you know, he invested a future for Kosei Fujita to learn under him. And not to mention Rohei Oiwa, the same thing, but he learned under, of course, Zack Sabre Jr.'s mentor, Ogawa, you know. And that's the same thing. We've been seeing wrestlers who learned that. And so David Finlay saying, if these guys are going to benefit the future for these guys, then I will do the same thing too. And that's exactly what he did. And that was the whole purpose of having Oscar Lobe and, of course, Yuto Ice, formerly known as Yuto Nakashima, to join. So we'll see what happens with them. Now, our next match, we have Yoshihashi, Ryusuke Taguchi, El Desperado taking on Toru Yano, Master Wato, and of course Yo. Now remember, there has been instances where we saw Taguchi taking on, of course, pinning Master Wato for hopefully an opportunity for the never openweight 6-man titles. But you ask yourself, in this match, with lightning strikes? Well, in this case, it did not, because it was Yo with a direct drive onto Despy, and just like that, it was over. However, what is interesting to know, as I mentioned, Yo pinned Despy. That means he could have an opportunity for a shot of the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. So that could possibly happen sooner or later, but we'll see. Now, we have, of course, the House of Losers, Yoshinobu Kanemaru, Don Fale, and Sanada taking on Tiger Mask, El Phantasmo, and of course Boltin Ole. Now, one thing I want to know, mention this, I don't know if you guys saw this. What's funny is this, those who know this, Sanada has a special move called the Paradise Lock, a move that he learned from none other than Milano Collection. And as you know, recently Milano has been harassed by Sanada, attacking him by throwing people at him. So El Phantasmo had the decency to ask Milano, say, hey Milano, how do I pull it? So he's like showing him, put him right here, put him right there, and he applied it. So he was enjoying seeing Sanada getting a taste of his own medicine. You know, he's like saying, hey, I supported you, pal, and this is the kind of crap you pull on me. You'll get a test of your own medicine. And I wouldn't be surprised if Milano endorses El Phantasmo. But unfortunately, that was not enough at all, because apparently Fale took out Tiger Mask with the elbow drop, and just like that, it was over. 1, 2, 3. However, Boltin Oleg was not done with Fale, and just like that, they continue to move on. So we'll see what happens between them. Now, we had the United Empire consisting of Jacob Austin Young, Cal Newman, and the Great Khan taking on Yuya Uemura, Shota Umino, and Hiroshi Tanahashi. Was interesting, as you all know, these guys have always had, both Umino and Uemura had their disdain towards Tanahashi, like trying to say that you're no longer the ace that we remembered. So that's always been the thing, and now they stand besides him. But the real question, how this was going to end, well, in the end, it was Uemura with the deadbolt suplex onto Jacob Austin Young, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, Yuya Uemura and his team picked up the win. Now, we have the Bullet Club War Dogs, Geto, Taiji Shimori, Drilla Maloney, and David Finlay taking on Daiki Nagai, Hiromu Takahashi, and Shingo Takagi, and Yota Tsuji. Now, of course, it was very interesting to see what we saw earlier with, of course, the newest members of the War Dogs. But what we saw, of course, as I mentioned, we saw Daiki Nagai, who's been getting very invested by, of course, the former members of LIJ, and now he has to learn a lot. But however, he suffered the fate by Drilla Maloney by applying the Drilla Killer, and just like that, 1, 2, 3, it was over. Now, we got the other members of the House of Losers, Doiki, Sho, Yujiro Takahashi, and Ren Narita taking on TMDKs. Harley Jackson, Rohit Oiwa, Kosa Fujita, and Zack Sabre Jr. So as you know, we saw, of course, the tactics when it comes to these idiots, using weapons to ensure they win. But however, it was Ren Narita with the Hell's guillotine, and just onto Oiwa, and just like that, 1, 2, 3 is over. But however, of course, Doki was intending to take out the knee of Zack Sabre Jr. because in their minds they were hoping that this will be the end of Zack Sabre Jr. and he will lose the championship one way or the other. But luckily, Kosa Fujita was not going to let that happen. But one thing led to another. Kosa Fujita decided, you know what? I'm coming for your tag team belts and taking them away from you. And that's exactly what he did. But the real question is who will be teaming up with them. We know that his last partner was Robbie Eagles. We know he's mostly been participating in Australian events, but hopefully we'll see him soon. Now, our main event is the G1 Climax of the finals. We have Konosuke Takeshita versus Evil. Now, of course, the fan base was divided in half. Some people don't like Konosuke Takeshita due to the fact that he's an outsider. Not because, an outsider. For those who don't understand, he didn't come from the same New Japan system, like, of course, with Oscar Lobe, Yuto Nakashima, Shota Umino, and everybody else who was in it. But, however, the other half want Konosuke Takeshita to win because they don't want Evil to cause any more problems. Now, of course, when it comes to Evil, we know the House of Losers will definitely try to ensure this match will go into his favor. But it failed miserably, of course. But one thing was amazing is Takeshita took out Fale. He lifted him up in the suplex and boom, took him out. But Rocky was taking out the trash, of course, because Takeshita wiped out the entirety of the House of Losers. And, of course, thank God for the Young Lions for helping them out. So take out the trash. Now, we assumed that everything was under control with them out of the way, but no, that creep showed up with the wrench, and then he was intending to hurt, of course, Takeshita, but nope, Zack Sabre Jr. decided to show up and put him in an ankle lock, dragging him out. I was like, come here, dickhead. So he just dragged him out, and I'm sure Sho is not going to happy with this, like saying, it's your fault, Zack, that we lost. Well, you tried to take me out, but that's on you. But of course, Evil did everything humanly possible to take out Takeshita. But it did not work until, of course, the Raging Fire was the last thing that Takeshita needed. And just like that, 1, 2, 3, winner of the G1 Climax. And just like that. Now, for those who don't know this, I mentioned that Konosuke Takeshita came from the DDT promotion. But what you guys don't know, while this event was happening, the DDT fan base got word that their golden boy has won the G1 and they celebrated. There's been videos of this on X if you guys ever seen it. But yes, it showed that they were very happy. And of course, he did receive the trophy and talked about his dreams. Now, for those who don't know this, Takeshita, when he was 16 years old, he wanted to join New Japan. But he was too young to join because he was only 16 years old. But now he feels like he's part of it because don't forget, he has a triple contract with both New Japan, DDT, and of course, AEW. And he feels like he has to unite wrestling as a whole. So that's one of the things I do like about Takeshita. He's seeing this wrestling is for everyone, not just one promotion or the other. Something that WWE has always been trying to say. They're the ones that run this entire thing. Nope. Is that everyone deserves to share it. And that's exactly what he's trying to do. Now, I do have a prediction on certain things with Takeshita. Now, it's obvious that he could win the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship whenever he wants to. But I do predict certain things, like, for example, 2 people that may want to get their hands on him. And I may do a video on that at some point. But we'll get to that later. But as of right now, we are officially done with New Japan and the G1 Climax. And we wrapped it up. Let's move on with some news updates. So, welcome to our news update. So, as you all probably need to know, there are no developments so far in our section of the news updates. We're only going to focus on, of course, upcoming events. Now, as you know, we have GCW with a 2-day event happening in September. Evil Deeds that will happen in Detroit on the 12th of September. It was announced Megan Bayne will be in action to take on Shotzi Blackheart. And then, of course, the following day in Indianapolis on the 13th of September, Rumble on the River. Um, Janelisis versus Los Desperados. If you guys don't know what Janelisis is, that is the team between Joey Janela and Megan Bayne. If you guys know, they are a real life couple taking on the members of Los Desperadores, Gringo Loco, and I forgot who else. But yes, so they're involved in this one. RevPro, as you know, will be heading closer to their upcoming event on the 22nd of August with Global Wars UK for they announced that the undisputed British tag team titles will be on the line. The Young Guns will defend the belts against GYV, the Grizzled Young Vets. So that's going to be interesting to watch. Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling with Sacred Ground on the 5th of September. They announced Billy Gunn will be participating. Oz Academy has announced for an upcoming event on the 7th of September, Sonoka Kato's retirement road. It was announced that she'll be teaming up with Aja Kong to take on Hikaru Shida and Shuri. Yes, the same Hikaru Shida are one of our AEW Women's Champion. If those who don't know, she used to be tag team partners with Shuri. This is prior before they made their way to the respective promotions as Stardom and AEW. I wouldn't be surprised if they team up again if Stardom and AEW meet up again. It was announced for the MLW Fightland event on the 13th September. Still with the opening round matches of the Upper Cup, Volador Jr. will take on Titan. And then finally, WrestleVotes announced that WWE will be doing, of course, WrestlePalooza on the 20th of September. So that's pretty much for upcoming events. So I'll see what happens. If there's any other announcements, I'll let you guys know as soon as possible. But as of right now, I'll say this. Let's call it a day. Well, I hope everybody enjoys this episode. Coming up, as you know, we have NXT. We are now getting closer. This is the go-home show before Heatwave. Because as you know, the TNA Knockouts World title will be defended in a 3-way between Ash by Elegance and Masha Slamovich, and Jay-Z Jane will be defending it, so that's going to be a little difficulty. But we will see what happens until then. But as of right now, I'll let you guys know. Now, I am considering possibly finishing up what I got left with Stardom, and after that, I may have to make some decisions regarding some recent events that I may not be able to catch up, but we'll see. But as of right now, we'll end things here, and I'll see you guys next time. So, I must bid all of you adieu. So, goodbye, and have a nice day. Bang.